Am I in the frame?
You is.
Welcome to my pie.
Why you gotta do that?
Welcome. We're the talk show. I don't know what I'm doing right now, bro. Can we just edit this out? My brain. This is too early. This is new for us. We're turning a new leaf. I've been up since Fedger. I really need a donut. Like, that's the only way I can talk properly. What did she do? She, like, mixed... I don't want no pink with sprinkles. I only want chocolate with sprinkles.
Alright, let's get it started, man. I want to be here. We're gonna run it into Jumai.
Okay. Okay. So, recently, I just watched Infinity War for the first time. I know I'm late on it, but basically, me and Issa were kind of talking about it, and we're talking about the main villain of the movie, Thanos. And I'm not going to give away any spoilers to the movie or anything like that, but basically, Thanos' goal in the movie is to eradicate Half-Life, which is, like, stupid. Like, he has an Infinity Gauntlet. Why don't you just make more food? I don't get it. But, like, he's wrong at the end of the day. Especially because he doesn't, like... There's so many reasons why he's wrong. I don't want to get into that. But, he does make some good points. Especially, in terms of, like, how resources are finite. Which is true. But, aside from that, I still think, like, even if resources were infinite, I still think people would hoard them and take them away from other people. But that sparked another conversation, and we were talking about natural disasters, and are natural disasters beneficial or harmful, or are they good or bad? And by good, I mean beneficial, and harmful, bad, for the human race. Your thoughts?
Well, I think last night we just kind of weren't on the same page.
Yeah.
I think. So originally, Muhammad had asked me, like, are they actually a good thing or a bad thing? And I was telling him, I was like, I don't think that you can relate a natural disaster to
Being good.
Yeah, exactly. Being good or being bad. And then I told him, I was like, I think there are beneficial things that come out of it, but there is also some very, very negative that come out of it as well. So, I mean, just 2017 was the worst, I think, hurricane season, or most expensive in the last 100 years or something. It might have been the worst one recorded. I'm not sure. But there was a ridiculous amount of deaths. Like, the death toll is crazy. I think in Puerto Rico there was, like, I just saw this like, I was watching, like, a news channel or something, and apparently that the original statistic, the original, like, mortality number was at 64. There, like, 64 people had died, and then recently it was saying it's actually upward of 5,000 people actually died. And then I saw something else that was saying it can be even up to, like, 8,000. So it's somewhere in between, like, 800 and 8,000 people died in that hurricane, which is, like, crazy. And that's definitely, you wouldn't consider that to be a beneficial thing. You know what I mean?
You can in some ways.
Yeah, and I'll let you explain that. But it's like, the negative is, like, their families.
What I hate to say is, because whenever I talk about the bigger picture, because when you talk about the bigger picture, I almost feel like you don't want to talk about the smaller picture. And the reason you don't is because people will get the two confused. So if I say, for example, the loss of like a mass scale of life is beneficial because of the lack of it would boost the economy, basically, because a lot of people are jobless right now. But a lot of people would basically say, like, so you're saying it's a good thing my relative so and so died in the hurricane.
Yeah.
It's like, but the thing is you can't let emotion and personal, like, get in the way of talking about the human race as a whole.
No, yeah, absolutely.
And it's like super important to get that out of the way, because if not, people are just gonna like, I guess, get emotional.
Yeah.
So another thing I don't think you know is that, like, as of now, I said it like again. I need to stop with that. But as of now, the human race, I think, is around 7.8 billion people on this planet right now. And the point where it gets scary in terms of resources is whenever we hit 10 billion people. That's whenever food starts to become an issue. And by 2050, it's projected we're going to hit 9.8 billion people.
Okay.
Which is insane.
That is crazy.
It's crazy. And so it makes you kind of think. And it makes you think, do we need, do more people need to die to make room? Because it's at this point, so many people are living long. And it's crazy because that's another moral dilemma. Like, we talked about, like, how modern medicine has allowed people to live longer.
Yeah.
And how even though it's almost a bad thing, you don't have a choice. Because people are losing their minds and they're growing so old, they're outgrowing their bodies.
Yeah.
However, as a family member, what can you do? Like, you have to help them live. You're obligated to help them. You're not going to just, like, dig a hole and throw them in it. So majority of people are going to, help their family members. So I feel like in that case, like, the smaller scale and the larger scale the bigger picture does interconnect.
Yeah, I mean, that's like a big deal.
It's a huge deal.
But, I mean, one of the things for starters, I think that there's probably some solutions, some alternatives that might be more effective than just, like, killing off a bunch of people, right? Or praying for a hurricane. For example, I know that in America, there's actually an excess amount of food, right? So it's like, America alone has how many people?
People will always... But, because we have enough food on this planet right now to where nobody has to go hungry.
Right.
Nobody has to go hungry. But people are selfish.
As a matter of fact, another thing is to actually get the body going into... For the body to be able to function, it doesn't require a lot of
as
food.
Much we overeat.
So even the people who are kind of like conscious about that stuff, they eat. You're not supposed to eat until you're full. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
And that is like being, conservative.
Excessive.
Well, I'm saying there are people that eat until they're full and then eat more just for like just for the heck of it. And then there are people that I feel like just eat until they're full, which I feel like is like okay, but you don't even necessarily need to do that. In Islam, it's actually like there's a hadith that says, well, actually, don't get me wrong. I don't know if it's a hadith or if it's just like from a scholar, but
1/3 should be air, 1/3 should be liquid or fluid.
I've heard of
should
that.
Be, yeah.
But I also heard from I can't remember who it was. I'm gonna try to find it and link it. But it was in a podcast. There's like a scholar that said, you should eat just until your stomach is like doesn't. I forgot. I'm gonna try to link it, but it was something like, whenever your stomach hurts like real bad, you should eat just to like make sure that you can get through that. But it's like, Rasulullah used to be around very, very wealthy people. You know what I mean? Like the Sahaba were wealthy, so it wasn't like they didn't have food, and still he didn't used to like just eat and eat and eat. And so I feel like if people adopted that. And just ate just to the point where it was like you can function, there'd be enough food for I think well over 10 billion people. I think that just individuals alone in America eat enough for 3, 4, maybe 5 people.
But the thing is, I feel like even if we had, like even though we have the food, people are still starving, which is
crazy.
Is a sad thing. Another reason I think natural disasters are actually beneficial is because, and this is a point you brought up, but I want to elaborate on, is that it brings people closer together. Yeah. And but not only does it bring people closer together, it also brings more. It makes people value life and their belongings more. It makes them realize what they had. You know what I mean? And because people nowadays have gone very soft, I
Yeah.
feel like. And one of my one of my friends was joking, and he was saying, if kids lost their phones, like say just technology, regressed and they lost their phones, he was joking, but there was truth to his joke. He said that half the kids would kill themselves,
Yeah,
and
that's wild.
it's like a wild statement, and it's absurd. But when you really think about it, you really think about these kids' lives, some of these kids' lives, and their whole life, they've come to worship this thing,
Yeah.
which is crazy. And I could actually see it happening, and I sat there quietly and I thought about it, and I was like, wow, that's wild. Like, even though what you're saying is just like, random out of your butt, it's still crazy to me.
But yeah, I think that it does. I think that it can bring people together. But I think it can tear people apart as well. You know what I mean? If there was let's say there's a family that loses the breadwinner in a hurricane, there can be some devastating side effects from that. You know what I'm saying? It's like that could be life ruining for everybody in the family. And so it's kind of, I don't think that natural disasters are just all the way. I definitely don't think you can say
You can't say they're evil
or a bad thing.
You can't say they're evil though.
Yeah, I think they are what they are. They're natural. I mean, they're natural things that occur.
Yeah.
Natural disasters have benefits and have, what is it called?
Because you can also argue, well, as a Muslim, we believe that a lot of times they happen because they're punishments.
Yeah,
Punishments
a lot
for
of times,
people,
yeah.
or to test people. One or the other. So they happen for a reason. I feel like you can't. I was thinking about it, and it's like, if something is beneficial, would you call it good? Would you say it's a good thing if it's beneficial?
Yeah, I mean, if you can say that it is like inherently beneficial,
Yeah.
then I would say, yeah, it's a good thing.
So
I would say that
if the tip scaled more in favor of beneficial.
I think if the purpose of it or what it represents is something of benefit, then I think it could be, for example,
Because I was also, I'm sorry for cutting you off, but I was also contemplating, why do they happen in the first place? Why couldn't, the world just be without them, And I was just thinking, like, would the world benefit if those didn't happen? Or would it be the opposite? Would people, like, continue to be spoiled and, And this goes more, this also goes for, like, bad leaders who are put in place are also tests for the people and stuff like that. But if those didn't happen, like, I feel like those kind of keep people in check. They keep people in line.
yeah, I think that's one way to look at it, and I agree with that, actually. But I think that it is just kind of one way to look at it. I mean, I don't really know all the negative effects from it, but there's definitely negative. This year, or 2017, it was the most expensive year for hurricanes. It was somewhere around $200 billion or something. $200 billion in damages, and it's like that is like a big deal.
Yeah.
So that's pretty negative. That hurts a lot of aspects.
I think it also wakes people up in terms of paying attention to climate change and just awareness in general, because a lot of people don't believe in climate change.
Yeah.
And we live in Houston. Every winter we get a colder winter, and every summer we get a hotter summer.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because it's like, how could you not realize this? And that's another thing. When you have 10 billion people on the planet, could you imagine just how bad the climate would be and how bad pollution would be?
Yeah.
Because and I was thinking about that study too, because obviously studies are they're not fact. Even though it's just a projection, and the technology would change by 2050. Even though I feel like it could change for the better, I still feel like people would not care. A lot of people are selfish without realizing it.
Yeah.
And for example, we know, I guess, like, how bad it is to drive around and waste fuel and, like, exhaust, for example.
Yeah.
Yet we don't carpool, or we don't try to ride our bikes, or we don't do anything about it. Or we don't fight for public transportation, especially in Houston, where we need it super badly. But we're probably the biggest city with the worst public transport. No sidewalks, or no good transportation system. So that's why when I think of more people on this planet, I think of more problems, honestly. And look at the amount of people right now who do nothing except take and not give.
Yeah.
So imagine more people just taking.
Crazy to think about.
It's crazy to think about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. When you put it like that, I kind of feel like, yeah,
People need to die.
like, I don't think that it's just like people need to die, but there's definitely something that needs to change. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, yeah.
But this is the first time in history where I guess there has been no balance in terms of, like, life like that. Because back in the day, people fought wars and died all the time. So, like, a man would live till, like, if he lived till 40, like, survive 3 wars or 3 battles or something.
It's considered kind of lucky.
Yeah, kind of lucky.
Yeah.
And now we've come to a point where we don't even know what it feels like to fight. The people in this country take it for granted, and it's kind of funny because I saw a video of a guy who was basically, like, confronting feminists again. I'm not talking about feminism, but he was basically saying, because you know how females want to send other females out to the front lines.
Yeah.
And the guy was talking to the girl, and he was like, would you trust me with your life, basically? And because he's, like, kind of a big guy, he's like, I can carry you on my back if you're wounded. And he's like, can I trust you with my life? And they were, like, kind of like, I don't know, like, maybe sure, because they had already argued for sending women to the front line.
Yeah.
And, like, she tried to pick him up and, like, could barely, like,
Even
drag
move,
him. Yeah, and it's just, like, a natural thing. But again, falling back on taking things for granted, we just don't know what it feels like to, we don't know what it feels like to have true loss, and we don't have enough loss, I feel like. And it sounds horrible because I wouldn't want anything bad, tragic to happen to me. Nobody wants that, but looking at the bigger picture, again, talking about natural disasters, I feel like humanity needs more of it. We need to struggle to become better.
For sure. I totally get that. What I'm saying is that it's like, I mean, yeah, I guess mass death is a potential answer, right?
Yeah, it sounds so horrible.
I mean, it does.
Because we're human beings.
Factually, like, if you look at it, like, from almost like a scientific perspective, then it makes sense. It's like, this is not like an attack on
anybody.
On anybody in particular. I mean, even if it was my family, right? Like, even if it was me and all of the people that I love, it is still beneficial. It doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah. It would also force people to step up as well and take jobs.
But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I don't think that is the answer, right? It's like, I don't think that we should be, like, praying for hurricanes to come and wipe everybody out. I think that there are definitely other things that we can do.
So some people actually, a friend of mine actually thinks a plague is going to happen.
You know what I think?
Because the amount of people that are on, what do they call it? On, not sanitized, what's the word? Vaccinated.
Yeah.
It's because there's a whole unvaccinate movement, or where you don't vaccinate your kids and stuff like that. And there's a huge population of unvaccinated people, and just low hygiene levels too. Because also people have disgusting hygiene.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So, just over time, and we've seen small outbreaks like that. Like, you remember Ebola?
Yeah.
And Ebola,
Swine flu.
yeah, the swine flu and all that, and those are small outbreaks, and every time they've managed to stop them, but even Ebola, like it takes longer and longer each time. So eventually, there might be something that happens where
Kind of wipes out a couple
just
people.
wipes out a few people.
I don't know, man. I honestly think that this is something I'm sure the governments of the world talk about. I think that there is something that they definitely can see. Because, I mean, we can see it even in Hollywood. It's like people are making movies about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like what the world would be like. So it's definitely something that is within a lot of the people existing right now. It's within their futures, if not ours. But what I think that they're gonna start a war or something,
Yeah,
like a big war,
and make money off of it too.
make money off of it. It'll fix a lot of problems, and a lot of people will die. Like I don't know. That's just kind of like a random theory. I have no evidence backing that up whatsoever.
You're not wrong, because history repeats itself.
I mean,
There's has always been a big wars, and the last two, World War I and World War II, took place. I don't know. They were not long after each other, in terms of just like scale of history, and it's crazy when you think about it, because World War II is still not that long ago. Like, we talk about Hitler like he was a dinosaur.
Yeah, we do.
But that was, like, people alive today remember him.
Yeah.
So that goes to show you, when history repeats itself, how close something like that could happen. And if something like that does happen, could you imagine just how soft our people are?
Yeah.
And what would happen?
Yeah, it is crazy. But I don't know, man.
It's crazy because, like...
Would you consider that beneficial, though, like a war? I mean, like,
there's so many circumstances for, like, a war. Maybe.
Yeah.
I feel like right now, the world is, not in terms of, like, technology and medicine, but in terms of social psychology, and just the way people think, I think it's going downhill in terms of that. So if that war brings a positive uplift in just the way people are as a whole, then it would be beneficial and it would be a good thing. But it's definitely weird, and it sounds horrible to say that the loss of life is a good thing. But that's not true. It's not true, because when you look at murder, for example, immediately when you think of murder, you think of it has a negative connotation to it. It's
tragic.
A person killing another person should never happen. That's your initial mindset when you think of murder. But when you think of a man who murders a child molester, people they're like good, get that guy off the streets. I mean, obviously nowadays you have people who are like, no, like, everybody, life is equal. Like, people, like I said, people's mindsets have become soft. But murder isn't always a bad thing. It all depends on the situation and the circumstance. Murder itself has a really, it sounds horrible to say. And people like to sugarcoat the word by what do they call it? Not like the state federal execution or stuff like that. But that's essentially murder. They're killing somebody.
Yeah.
So, and some people deserve it. Although I don't agree with the way they do it. I don't agree with letting a person live out till he's old.
That's ridiculous.
And his morals completely change. He becomes a different person.
Death
becomes
row.
A great person.
Yeah.
Because and then they kill him. I mean, I think that's messed up, because people people underestimate the power of the mind and the power of a person's ability to change.
Rehabilitation.
And when we look back at ourselves when we were younger, it's almost mind-blowing how different of people we were. I did stuff and I've done stuff that now I would never do.
Yeah.
So it really, and this is going off on a tangent a little bit, but it really sucks whenever you have somebody commits like a minor crime or something like that, and their life is ruined because of it, and they can't find a job because of it, and everybody judges them because of it. I mean, depending on what they did and depending on how they present themselves, I may actually like that person better because they learned from that and became a way better person than somebody who has never committed, say, that crime.
Yeah, that's true. So we're talking about our natural disasters inherently
Beneficial. I think so.
You think so?
But there is minor factors that, play a role into it. For example, I think the destruction of... I'm to be honest with you, I feel like they are. What I was gonna say is the destruction of mass homes is not good. But think about all the people who benefit from rebuilding the homes, because it's providing jobs for people, and it's also providing the people who lost their homes to appreciate and value just houses in general and shelter in general.
And if they don't appreciate it,
they're a horrible human being. No, I'm just kidding. I
feel like for us to say that something is inherently beneficial, it has to be something almost factual that people can see. Like, this is absolutely making people better. This is absolutely one of the things that we can see for sure.
But you said
statistics. You can follow a death toll. Right? You can see how much something costs. You can see the amount of time that it'll take to rebuild these things. You can also see how many jobs it provides. That's something that you can, but that's something that we very rarely see statistical values on. You never see that. Like, oh, this hurricane, good news, everybody. It has provided X amount of jobs.
Yeah. Well, nobody's going to do that.
Yeah.
But, so even now they're trying to fix, they're trying to create a better, like, flooding system in Houston. They're trying to make I don't know what you call it, our drainage system better. And they're trying to make houses more flood-proof, or like building them higher and stuff like that, using better materials. So could you imagine what would happen if there was if Harvey never happened, Hurricane Harvey never happened, and then a bigger and badder hurricane happened later down the line instead?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree with you. I think it's beneficial.
But it's like you said, it's hard to say because there's always going to be some aspects that are not beneficial.
And everything.
But I try to look at, I guess, the bigger picture. And even if it's on the scale of being more beneficial, even by a little bit, I'm going to say it's inherently beneficial. Because there's always going to be people, like small situations, not just small, they could be big situations where it's not beneficial.
Yeah.
But just from my perspective, I see it as a whole that it's beneficial. This is just opinion. It's not fact.
I actually agree with you now. I convinced myself in my head because you know what I was thinking about? I was like, I feel like one of the ways that we can kind of break down this situation is to like bring it down. You know what I'm saying? Bring it down to a smaller scale. When you think about it, really what it is it's just an accident, and you have to. It's a bad thing that happened, right?
Yeah.
It's a very sad thing that happened, and if you can kind of take maybe your own personal situation, for example, right? If I break my arm.
Yeah.
Is that inherently a bad thing, or is it a good thing? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or let's say I lose an arm.
Yeah.
I feel like that's more appropriate. But if I lose an arm, what are the good things and bad things that come from that? I feel like a lot of times, if you lose your arm, it's not the end of the world. And there's also a ton of benefits mentally.
Yeah.
That can come from that. So, for example, you might appreciate your other arm.
A lot of amputees and people who lose their arms at earlier ages or they are born without them are just super mentally strong-willed people.
Some of them are not.
Some are not. But
some are the complete opposite.
So a lot of the ones I see that are not are usually in an older population who are already frail and they have already lost hope, just in themselves and regardless. And it's actually very mind blowing. But a lot of people don't take care of themselves,
For sure.
and because they feel like they can never be good, they can never be healthy.
Yeah.
So they're like, I might as well just indulge myself until I die. And it's crazy how much I see that.
Yeah. The second thing that I wanted to say is that for this whole time I've been thinking about death in itself as like a negative.
Yeah.
And it's like, really, I don't know if you can just say that death in itself is like a negative thing. Because if death is a negative thing, then you're saying that life is inherently a positive thing.
Yeah.
But it's
But
couldn't
not.
say that, you know what I mean? There are things that come with death that are you might consider negative, but it's just sadness.
It's a balance. And when you take emotion and personal values out of the equation, the balance starts to become more clear.
Yeah.
Because we can't see death. We don't know anything about death other than you're gone. Well,
Right.
unless you have religious beliefs like we do. But if you don't, it's a gray, black, dark area that you don't want to touch.
Yeah. You can't say that it's inherently good or evil, good or bad. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because somebody could die, the same person, right? There's
Yeah.
one person who dies, and this group of people hates him, and it's like a blessing for them. And then another group of people loves him.
But that's
and then
putting
it's-
emotional and personal values
And that's
into
what
it.
I'm saying. That's why I'm saying you can't say that because of those two things, it's a good or bad thing. It's because, it's kind of subjective. You can't really
I
put...
think it's a good thing in terms of balance, but not a good thing in terms of individual, personal, emotional. I'm talking about just the...
Yeah, so then you couldn't even consider that, I don't think. I don't think that you can consider your bias on death, life and death. So I think that so far we've only listed true benefits. I think some of the negative effects is like the cost. That's a negative.
I'm not talking about somebody dying. I'm talking about death in itself.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. So it's like, what would be a negative effect of a natural disaster?
I mean, when you think... other than the personal stuff...
You can't include those.
It depends on the situation. For example, say like a big hurricane or tsunami comes and just engulfs land, and that land is now forever gone, and it was like a prosperous, healthy, like,
That makes sense.
land.
I mean,
That would suck.
that would be a negative effect.
Yeah, that would be a negative effect because it's less resources for humanity as a whole. Yeah, I would say that.
Dang, I actually just thought about something else. Why is it important? Oh, dude, we got it mixed up.
What's up?
So one of the benefits of death that we talked about is it's good. It's beneficial.
Like you said, it's a balance. Living forever is not good for humanity. If everybody lived forever, it would be a horrible thing.
Right, but what I'm saying is like one of the benefits that we had said is that, there's a loss of life, and so in turn, there's more resources.
Yeah, or more growth for other life.
For other life.
Yeah.
So you're saying that the resources are just there to sustain more life.
To sustain life as it is. To sustain life in general. Resources are a necessary good to sustain life.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, in a way, you could just say that we don't need hurricanes. We would just need to wait until there's too many people to starve, and then it would balance itself on its own. Or you can say that you can wait until there's a war over food, and then that war would be a direct effect of the lack of resources. But one of the things the reason why I brought it up is because really what we're arguing is that it's beneficial for some people to die so that other people can live.
Kind of, yeah.
It's kind of wild. I don't know how I feel about that.
It's crazy. But, I think death is necessary for life, and it's a balance. They both have to exist for
Yeah.
people to prosper.
For sure. I mean, that makes sense. So I feel like you're more arguing for the balance of life and death rather than life. Like people should live.
Yeah.
Then I think that we shouldn't touch those two. I think they'll balance themselves out. Eventually, if we're to the point where we're running out of food,
Yeah.
people are going to kill each other.
Yeah.
That will be the case.
Yeah.
And maybe it won't look like they're killing each other
They'll
intentionally.
be fighting for something else. It'll be more than just food.
Yeah.
Because there's other resources that are important other than food.
Oil, land.
Whatever. It could come to a point where oil runs out, and then and then not just oil runs out, but also areas in the ozone, deteriorate, and then certain pieces of land will be unsustainable to live on, and then people will be just trying to fight for the best land, which is actually kind of ironic because that's what people used to fight over anyways a long time ago, is like fertile land, because people used to have land that they couldn't live on because that land itself did not sustain life. The water was bad or salty or whatever, and there was no natural rivers, and
This is a tough topic.
it's crazy.
We might have to get back to this one.
Get a second, third, fourth, fifth opinion.
Yeah, this one's tough. Because if we're saying that death is beneficial, right?
Yeah.
And we're also saying that.
But too much death is not beneficial. Because if everybody died, there would be nobody.
So life is the goal.
I guess. Not too much life. It's a balance. So too much life is bad, too much death is
So you
bad.
feel like
there
we're
needs
in
to
a-
be both. Right now, more people are being... I don't know if it's... Well, it has to be. More people are being born than
people
are
are
dying.
dying.
So the tips, the balance is ruined right now. And so that's part of the reason why I was saying natural disasters are beneficial, but there's a lot of reasons why, and that we already covered why they're beneficial. But now that we're talking about just life and death, I feel like the tips are more balanced in favor of life. And that falls back on how people are living too long, and people are having unprotected sex carelessly, and it's a lot of reasons why a lot of people are being born, and a lot of reasons why people aren't contributing to society, a lot of reasons why people are taking, not giving.
So it's not really natural disasters.
It could be famine, it could be anything.
It could be just the
War.
the balance of life
Yeah.
and death is a necessity. I mean, that makes sense. I'm like fried off this topic. I
Yeah.
can't really think anymore. So
But
sure we're missing something.
well, even and it's like falling back onto, you could argue, well, you pretty much agree with Thanos then, where it's just half all life. The reason why Thanos is wrong is because, first of all, he's a hypocrite, because he himself was a survivor, and in his eyes, it's a good thing he became the survivor, because now he knows his mission. He has his goal to create balance in the universe. But you're denying other people of that opportunity. So his argument is, people are going to starve, and it's better for them to die, and for the future generation not to starve. That was one of his arguments. But I was like, how are you going to... First of all, that person, even though they may be starving, may still appreciate life. You don't know that. And also, because that person is starving, they would also become a better... Well, they may not become a better person, but you could argue that they value food more, and that it can shape them into becoming a better person. So, and he's denying all those people of that. And not just that, he's basically handing people life on a golden platter, the next generations. So they'll just become spoiled, and then the same thing will happen again, and then he'll just erase it again. So he's not looking his long-term solution is just to keep killing, is genocide. And a lot of people don't know this, but Thanos actually enjoys killing. They don't show that in the movie, but in his origin story, as Lady Death kind of gets him to experiment on people and take away life and stuff like that, he slowly comes to enjoy it, and then he admits to enjoying taking away life, and he even kills his own mother and takes her apart and enjoys it.
Dang, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's a bit wild there.
He's a wild villain, but the movies portrayed him they wanted to kind of create that he's kind of has a point, but there's a lot of plot holes in the movie.
No, I think that's the idea behind it. I think it's not too far off from him, because really, I feel like Thanos in a way represents the point past natural disaster. I don't think that the snap of the fingers is the natural disaster. I think that's the war. There's going to be a time where there's somebody very powerful, whether it be a country or a leader or whatever, that feels like there's not enough food for us.
Yeah, but Thanos is so wrong because in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the universe is infinite.
Yeah.
And so there's pretty much infinite resources.
Yeah, I mean, but considering...
So it's he's wrong for so many reasons. And with the gauntlet, he could give everybody resources. You know?
That's something that you brought up early on, and I was like, why doesn't he just do that?
It's just... I think it's because he enjoys the act of killing.
If you consider it to be real, it's just for theoretical purposes or hypothetical purposes, let's just consider this to be a real universe somewhere where the resources are not unlimited.
Yeah.
Would you think that he's wrong then?
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you think
he's super wrong?
So if America, right? Let's say us in our world.
Yeah.
We live in America. We're running out of food. Is it okay for America, the most powerful country in the entire world, is it okay for us to go and kill a bunch of people so that everyone can eat?
I mean, so everyone in the world could eat, or only America could eat?
For everyone, so that it's just fair. We're just we got a button and it's this button's gonna nuke just a bunch of random places by random.
Or just get rid of a bunch of people. It doesn't have to be by nuke, but we're gonna send people over.
Mm-hmm.
It's I don't know.
Because we've run out of resources at this point. It's either this random, or
if that were to happen, it wouldn't be as simple. They would cover it up by something, because people living here would not agree with that.
For sure, but what I'm saying is essentially.
I know. I'm still trying to process my answer. Would that be a good thing? Mm-hmm. I have to think about that one. I really do. It really depends on who they take it away from as well.
Random.
Just random, so everybody could eat. I can't. To be honest with you, I'd have to sit and really think about that one. That's not something I could just talk off just the top of my head, because it's. I mean, I know people are going to say it's good at the end of the day, because, whoever is on top of history is usually the good,
the good guy, yeah.
Especially if it's your country. But that's I don't know.
If you were one of the countries after they pushed the button that got nuked, would you think that it was a good thing or a bad thing?
Obviously, you'd think it's a bad thing.
And
For sure, you'd think it's a bad thing.
And so half of the population would consider it to be a bad thing.
And I wouldn't even say the other half would consider it to be a good thing. But they're eating though, so they don't have a choice, to say it was a good thing or a bad thing, unless they deny the food.
No, I mean they still could.
They have an opinion, but it's not. I feel like their opinion is not really weighted, because they would have done something to stop it.
Not necessarily.
It's almost like I don't know.
It's almost like everything that's going on right now
with oil and stuff like that, because people drive cars and stuff like that and waste fuel, even though the way we got the fuel is not through good means, or through the Saudi people taking money from their own, or just Arab leaders taking resources from their own people and just selling it, putting the money in their own pockets, and that's the fuel we use to drive around, and we're enjoying it while other people are suffering because of it.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. In my opinion, I think Thanos is wrong, and I think America would be wrong. That's just
to
my
do that. Well,
personal opinion.
because you can also use the argument where it's not our choice. Like it's
That is
God's.
the reason. That is the reason why.
And I thought about that too.
It's like, and that might just be because we're Muslim. But the thing
Yeah.
is like, people do not have the right to
My
cause death.
my initial answer to you was gonna be to find another solution. Like try to find. There's always more than one solution.
Yeah.
You know, even if you haven't thought of one, but you just the situation is complicated, but you gave me a simple scenario.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So that's why I was trying to put
Break it
all
down.
as many factors as I could in my head and give you an answer, but I would have to give you a complicated answer, and
Yeah, that
the
makes
situation would have to be more complicated.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think that. I don't think that it would be right. I don't think that, unless the only way is if everybody agreed for it to be like it's random, right? Unless you have permission from, of course, God.
So
or from-
the world leaders would basically all agree to make like a random thing.
yeah, and the people, the world leaders were elected by the people as well. So the people elect world leaders, and then the world leaders all agree that that's a thing. Then people may disagree, and I still feel like it would be correct. It's just majority.
It's
people.
definitely a moral dilemma.
Yes, so.
Have you ever read the book Our Town? You probably have in school. You just don't remember it. But basically, it's a short story about like a small community, and it's a very nice community. And in the beginning of the book, there's all these kids playing outside, and they're gathering rocks. They're gathering stones, and they're putting them in piles. And everybody's having fun and gathering rocks. It's what they do. Like they do it once a year, and like mothers are gathering flowers and stuff like that. And everybody's getting ready for this celebration. And what you end up finding out as the reader is that they're basically trying to get ready for a sacrifice, and somebody in the town in this small community is gonna get picked at random to die. And in the end of the story ends up being one of the boys who was gathering the stones. And they don't explain why basically they have to be sacrificed, but it's the only way for, I think, the crops and everybody to prosper. There had to be a sacrifice. And the only people who suffered is the family of the boy. The mother and the father were like crying in tears. They didn't want him to die, and the kid himself obviously was crying. But everybody else stones him happily, and they end up killing him.
Yeah.
And so, can you say that's a good thing or a bad thing? Because it's a horrible thing, but everybody benefited from it except for that family. So, it's a moral dilemma, you know. And there's another short story called Namarisa, which is basically like American backwards, and
I think I've heard of
it's
that.
basically a utopia, but only one person suffers.
Yeah, I heard about that.
And then would you let that person escape and doom or damn everybody, or would you let him continue to suffer?
That's tough.
They're moral dilemmas, you know, and those are simple situation with a more complicated scenario. And that's kind of what you gave me, and that's why I couldn't really give you an answer.
Yeah, those are pretty tough. Maybe a topic for another day.
I don't even know, bro. I gotta grow like 20 IQ.
20 IQ.
20 IQ.
All right, well that was it for the Thanos dilemma.
Thanos.
Thanos. I'm gonna check it. Make sure.
Maybe we should just leave it at that, because that was a very big
That was
topic.
big. Yeah, that was big. And I feel like it wasn't our best. Thank you all for watching. Inshallah, we're gonna. Hopefully, we didn't say anything out of character, or hopefully, we didn't offend anyone, which we probably did for sure. I'm just kidding.
No, I mean, it's cool. Just even if you leave a dislike, just make sure you subscribe. Make sure you subscribe. That's important. All of you who are watching, support us if you know us. You don't have to like us. You don't have to like what we said, but you may like what we said next time. And that's the important thing about following your dreams. and following us. We're done. We're done.
All right.
I'm tapping out. That's what we do now. When we're done, we tap out because we watch, we watch like MMA and stuff. So we just, and then we walk up, and then like I go 3, 2, 1, and then we both walk like this.
Alrighty.
Wait, we're supposed to do it at the same time.
Oh.
So sit back down. All right. Goodbye, guys.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. And then now you could do like a lightning strike, and like you could edit like.